Hey, welcome back to another little update on my Buick. There's three little things I wanted to touch on today. Number one, the sequential turn signals that I've been working on. About 10 years ago, I bought a product from a company called Web Electric Products. And these modules, called the STS1, they were about $69 then. I think these are still sold now, and they're still the same price. There wasn't much available 10 years ago. I couldn't find much. I guess there's more stuff on eBay now as far as sequential modules. These are supposed to work with your standard flasher that's in the car, which I think I had a 552 flasher unit. They said if your directionals don't work quite right, let's say that the inside two lamps flash, but the outside third lamp is weak, it doesn't come up to full brilliance, or it doesn't really work, then you have to go to a more heavy-duty flasher. Well, I tried a number of flashers. I bought the most heavy duties that I could find on the web. I tried this one, this electronic flasher. I got this product from Grote. It's supposed to handle 12 lamps, and of course the 552 just didn't cut it. It didn't work. I was getting the action with the two inside lamps would flash, but not the third outside one. So I started thinking about something else that I could do, and I just sort of ran into it by chance. I'll talk about it with some close-ups here. Okay, so I was thinking maybe I can get two flashers somehow working together that would solve this problem that I was having with the outside light. So I made up a little wiring harness with male and female stake-ons and a type of splice-through connector for the center. So I began to experiment, and I had a 552 flasher with the Grote. That didn't work. I had a 552 flasher with the electronic flasher. That didn't work. But then I had an old 323, I think this is, 323 Wagner flasher, and I combined that with the 552, and lo and behold, the problem went away. All three lights are working. I'll show you that shortly here in a second. And the brake lights sort of work in sequential fashion also. They sequence out and then they go solid. And that'll show up too when I show you the light operation. So, I mean, I have no, explanation technically why this ended up working. But it did for me. So if you got any questions on that, just put it in the comments section. I'll see if I can answer it for you. But they seem to be working fine now. So this is what happens with one of the flashers, either a 552 or one of the other flashers by themselves. You get the two inside lamps that have good brightness, and then that third outside lamp, very dim. That doesn't come up to full brightness. The second thing I want to show you guys is the instrument cluster. I kind of renovated what I had. It was in pretty rough shape. They sell new wood grain and stuff, and cleaned up and polished every one of the switches. And of course, the main thing, that I wanted to show you is the clock. And of course, it wasn't working, so I want to show you what I did to get it working. Okay, if you remove the instrument cluster, the first thing you're going to have to do is take the clock off the cluster. There's two 1/4-inch screws that hold it in place. and then you can remove it. Okay, the next thing you want to do is get this little time setter knob off. I take a small Allen wrench, hold the knob, get the Allen wrench to set in there, and then just unscrew it. And it'll come off. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is take the back of the clock off, and there's 4 little tabs that are bent over. So you want to take a screwdriver or a needle nose and get in there and pry those little tabs up straight. And that should release the back part, like that. And then you can remove the mechanism. Okay, while you've got the clock all open, the lens that's plastic, you can clean that up with some Meguiar's plastic polish. It seems to do a good job, and that'll bring more clarity back to the old lens. As far as the clock face, don't use any heavy cleaning materials on this. Maybe just a damp cloth. If you use anything else, you may destroy the numbers in that. I think there's some sort of a luminescent number, and you don't want to wreck those. So just a very lightly damp cloth, just lightly dust off the face. Okay, one of the things to check for is the condition of these points, these contacts right here. You want to make sure that there's no corrosion, no carbon tracking or anything like that. Take a emery board or some light sandpaper and gently file or sand these points so that there's no corrosion or oxidation or anything on them. So when they close, you have a good electrical circuit between them. As far as lubrication, you want to use a real light machine oil. Nothing heavy, very, very light. This is all I've had. This is sort of a sewing machine oil. And that seems to work good. Okay, as far as the lubrication points that you want to hit, anytime you see a small shaft from a gear coming up through the plates or little bushing areas, this is where you want to get a small drop of oil and get it to seep through. It may be just a little bit of oil, a drop on some of the gears. And then, to start the clock, this oscillating wheel here, just take your thumb and give it a little push, and don't worry if it stops. You're going to have to keep doing it until the lubrication seeps through, until the clock will run on its own. Make sure that the contact points are open, or it won't run. So just open them up like that. And if the clock doesn't start on its own, like I say, take your thumb on the oscillating wheel, give it a movement. It may stop, it may slow down, then stop. Just keep doing it until it starts running on its own. And it should run on its own until the contact points close. And when you have power on the clock, once they close, they'll fire open, and that will take the spring and give the tension in order for the clock to keep running for another about 2 minutes. It's hard for me to show this with the camera. So let the lubrication work in. 8 times out of 10 at least, lubrication is probably the main culprit of why the clock won't work. Okay, one last point I guess I could make. If the clock still isn't working after you've lubricated and cleaned it and cleaned up the contact points, it's possible that a wire from the coil has burned off. If it has, it's usually the very first winding, and what you would have to do is what you would have to do is unwind and get a fresh piece and resolder, because that, if it's burned off, then the coil is open and the clock won't work. But hopefully that hasn't happened to your clock, because I've never done it myself, but it doesn't look like an easy job. So between the coil wire that's possibly burnt, the contacts, and general cleaning and lubrication, you should be able to get your clock to work. Okay, the last thing I want to show you, I'm working on the interior of the car, and I happened to notice where the kick panels go, there's a little metal pocket there, and it looked like there was some paper in it. So I reached down, I was able to work the paper out, and it's a body shop inspection form or sheet. I don't know if you can see any of this. And on the back, it lists a lot of the things that were part of the car that I have. And it looks like it's got some sort of a, a GM code number or whatever next to each one, like the AC auto control, it's C61, and power windows all, that's another number there, and door edge guards, tinted glass all. So there was a number of things that pertain specifically to my car that that was coded out for on the back side. And at the bottom it says 11/21/68, which I'm assuming is when the car was built. So I thought this was really interesting that it's still intact. It doesn't feel crumbly. After 50 years, you would expect something. It just has a few rust stains on it, but I thought it was so cool. How often do you find these sheets? Anyhow, that's it, guys. Okay, I hope you can see this. When you open the driver's door and you're looking at the dash, just below the dash, there's a pocket where the kick panels would be, and inside this pocket here is where I found the inspection sheets. I was so surprised, and especially they were still intact and they didn't crumble. For being over 50 years old, you would expect these things aren't going to be in great shape. So I was really kind of surprised and happy to find it.